Ready? Orange. On the go. Orange. Focused. Orange.
On point. Always.
Accurate. Orange.
Live, always. Informing your view of the world so you can make that informed decision. We inform to transform. NBS Always, the political command center.
The Uganda Chamber of Mines and Petroleum is a not-for-profit member-based organization that was founded in March 2010. The Chamber's purpose is to be the coordinating and facilitating center for information and administrative support to prospective and current investors in the mining and petroleum sectors in Uganda. It represents companies with active interest in the mining and petroleum sectors while promoting, encouraging, protecting, and fostering responsible exploration in these sectors. Its primary goal is to create value for all stakeholders. The Chamber advocates for a beneficial business environment, creation of synergies and partnerships, information dissemination, and capacity enhancement for effective national content promotion. Membership in the Chamber is open to all players across the entire value chains of mining and petroleum. National content is our flagship, and at UCMP, we believe that together we can achieve more. To register, info@ucmp.ug or call +256 393 516 695.
Well, a very good morning. If you're just tuning in right now, wherever you are, it's the breakfast meeting. And my name is Mebo Twegumiezake. And of course, as you keep following the conversation across our social media platform, you should notice yesterday we had an interesting conversation on the vast opportunities when it comes to the East African crude oil pipeline, continuing with the 90 days of oil and mining to sensitize Ugandans and stakeholders on the oil and gas sector. Well, the conversation continues this morning. A reminder that Uganda's oil sector has transitioned from the exploration and appraisal phase to now what is the development phase. It is estimated that about 15 billion or even more will be spent during the development phase of the oil industry. And this brings us into the conversation on local content in today's breakfast meeting. How much Ugandans can earn from the development phase of the oil industry through the direct employment and even supply of goods and services. And that's where we bring in James Musherure, the Senior National Content Officer, that is contracts from the Petroleum Authority, Uganda. Well, welcome to the breakfast meeting.
Thank you, Mebo. Good morning, dear viewers. I'm glad to be here at the studios today and to talk about the local content and contracting in the oil and gas sector.
Okay, so when we speak of the field development, remember we'll bring back the conversation still into the pipeline and even the refinery, right? So when we speak of 15 billion Uganda shillings, it seems to be a very huge investment. But now let's bring the conversation to local content and the contract values. First, break it down for us in that perspective.
Thank you very much, Mabo. First of all, it's $15 billion. Not Uganda shillings.
Uganda shillings.
And indeed, it's a big investment for the sector.
Yeah.
And if I'm to give you the magnitude of this, what we're talking about, in the past, I think contracts in Uganda, especially in the road sector, have been in millions of shillings, hundreds of millions. We eventually saw bigger contracts being awarded for power dams like Bujagali at about 800 million. We've moved to bigger projects like Karuma at 1.3 billion. And I think the biggest project predicted in Uganda is about the 3 billion for the standard gauge rail. But here we're talking about an investment in a sector of 15 to 20 billion dollars. So it is 10 times the biggest project we've had in Uganda. And that means it's a lot of contracting and a lot of opportunities to come. If you remember, I think it's a window that Ugandans should look out for. If you remember, at one time there was an excitement of CHOGM some years back. That excitement was for a window, and it's a short period of window. So this 15 to 20 billion is going to be in projects that are going to commercialize what we discovered in Uganda, the oil and gas discoveries. Now, to commercialize Uganda's projects, Uganda chose an approach of having, if you discover oil, you have to, for you to be able to commercialize it or to make it profitable, you either have to have a pipeline to transport that oil to the international market, or have a refinery to refine that crude oil to produce the final products. So Uganda chose that approach, that will have both a refinery, which will meet the East African, Ugandan and the East African demand of 60,000 barrels. That's going to be about $3.5 billion. And then it will have a pipeline, a crude oil pipeline, like you're discussing about the pipeline yesterday, of 1,443 kilometers from Hoima to Tanga in Tanzania. This is a heated pipeline. So imagine a huge pipeline crossing two countries and to deliver crude. So that construction alone is going to be about $3 to $4 billion. And then, of course, where the oil has been discovered, Tilenga and Kingfisher. The Tilenga is up north for Total, and Kingfisher is south for Sinok. That's going to be about 8 to 10 billion. So all these packages have a lot of contracts that I can break down further, if you allow me.
Yeah, it's because at the end of the day, we would want to know how much of these contracts have actually been given to Ugandan law firms.
Yes.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, if we're looking at sustainable development, and stories of, if 40% of that 15 billion or even more actually stays right here in Uganda, then probably our Pearl of Africa won't remain the same. Yeah.
Probably it won't. Probably this is a changing game for most businesses in Uganda. Yeah. And in fact, at the exploration phase, the discovery process, there was an investment of about $3.2 billion. And about 28%, about 900 million, was retained by Ugandan companies. And I can assure you, we saw some big companies coming up as a result of that spend of $3 billion. Okay. So some companies coming up. So with this 15 billion, I think if Ugandans prepare themselves, they can easily tap into this resource and get something. So the contracts, as I break down for you, for example, you'll have the pipeline that I talked about, the 1,443 kilometers. It's going to have contracts under that package. For example, it's going to have construction and laying of the pipeline alone. It's going to be done in 3 segments. There's a segment here in Uganda, 1, and then 2 in Tanzania. So that means there are opportunities there for construction, companies. There are opportunities for people who are going to clear the land. Of course, that is almost starting. There are opportunities for people who are going to lay the pipelines. There are people who are going to supply food to the people working on the pipeline. So that alone is construction. But also, it has support systems that come with it. For example, you'll have electronic instrumentation and telecommunication system. Because this is a complicated pipeline, it will have to have it's going to be heated, first of all, because our crude is waxy, so it needs to be heated to be able to be transported at a certain temperature, about 60 degrees. So you'll have that system of heating, you have that system of electricity generation in the pipeline, you have that system of telecommunication, they detect the leakages, you've heard of leakages, oil spill. So that system alone has many components in it. It has CCTV cameras, it has communication, telecommunication and radio communication, it has softwares and like SCADA. So those are contracts under that system. Then there is logistics. Can you imagine transporting pipelines of course, it's going to be 18 meters per pipeline, that will be able to transport crude from here to Tanzania. So having all those logistics, all the pipelines coming in, to be laid, you have all equipment that is going to come in to do this work. That's a lot in there. So the whole package is big. There is also a package of above the ground installation. So there's going to be pump stations. Because the distance is long, you have to be able to pump the oil at 6 different pump stations. So there is civil works involved there. There is inspection and testing of kits. There are financial services, there are insurance services, there are legal services, there is water services, I can tell you the contracts are many, because that is the package of a pipeline, because there are so many packages there involved. Now, when you come to Tilenga itself, where you're going to produce the crude, they're going to set up what we call the central processing facilities. Now, these are like a factory. I would equate it to a factory, if you like a soda factory or a beer brewing factory, but on a bigger scale. So that involves setting up of structures for that. You're going to have drilling wells, and that means you have to set up well pads. So there are many contracts as well involved there. There is logistics, there is camp. You'll have about 5,000 people living in the Tilenga camp up north, and then you have about 2,000 to 3,000 down in Kingfisher. So that means those people have to be fed, there is food, those people have to be given medical attention, those people have to be accommodated. So there are so many contracts involved at each stage. But what is important for Ugandans to know is that not every contract is going to be given by the oil company. So everyone, when you hear oil and say, I'm going to Total for a contract, I'm going to CNOOC, there are so many contracts available at the subcontracting level. And that's where companies need to look out for, because there are so many companies that are going to be main providers of the CPF, of the logistics, of the camp. How are they going to subcontract Ugandans there? So these projects all have contracts that we try and would explain to Ugandans in that regard.
Well, for those now who are interested and probably to be encouraged, are there any contracts that are actually already running? Because there's usually talk of all foreign companies usually get these contracts first, because they even have the capacity to be able, to finance what is needed, unlike maybe local companies that might have to maybe get a loan, and at times, or even insurance, the support system might actually limit them in terms of capacity to be able to finance.
Okay. Yes, definitely there are contracts already running. I told you in the exploration phase we had about 3.2 billion. But let me break it down to the recent years. In 2019, last year alone, there was a total contract spend when there were no activities of about $21 million by the companies. This year alone, 2018, we have about $33 million that was spent. This year we expect more. So there's been contracts awarded and still going on.
Is it okay to know some of those companies that are executing them? I
don't know if the companies would want me to to reveal the companies that get this, so that we avoid, you never know, people are lost. But there are companies that have been involved in engineering works with subcontracted by the main engineering companies. So we've had big companies there. We have had companies doing environmental studies, impact assessments. All those are there. We've had companies doing geophysical and geotechnical surveys. This is testing the ground, and those companies have been Ugandan companies. We've companies, of course, providing legal services. You've heard that we've been engaging in negotiations with the oil companies and Tanzania. So those contracts have been running in security, in human resource, in surveying, because this land is going to go across 9-10 districts of Uganda where the pipeline is going to pass. So there are contracts that have been going, and of course there are early work contracts that are coming up, like clearing the land where the industrial park is going to be and the central processing facility, like continuing compensating people. There's a lot of early works contracts that will continue. And these contracts are there, and people should look out for them because they advertise in the papers. They are put on the national supplier database that, like I will talk about later. And the industry is continuing. There are contracts that were needed before FID, and those contracts are ongoing because some work continued, preparation work continued even before FID. So we needed to do some work around environment, around land acquisition, around engineering, and getting more detailed about the concept of the engineering concept and engineering designs. So all these contracts have been ongoing, and there are more contracts to come after FID.
Okay, you spoke of the National Supplier Database.
Yes.
There's also the National
Oil and Gas
Talent Register. So does that play into how highly regulated these contracts are?
Yes. As you're aware, the Petroleum Authority of Uganda is responsible for regulating the oil and gas industry. And local content is key for us. Now, local content, at the end of the day, it's about, are you employed as Dora? Sorry, as Mebo? Or are you given a contract for services? So in order to regulate those two aspects, the Petroleum Authority, under the law, was required to set up two databases. One is the National Supplier Database. So that one is for people who are looking for contracts. Then you have the National Oil and Gas Talent Register. That one is for people who are looking for jobs. Now, the National Supplier Database, I'll talk about both of them in a distinct way. Here, it provides visibility for Ugandans to see, first of all, if I come to you and I say, you talked about the technicality, if I come and tell you and there's no person or media company in Uganda that can handle the magnitude of the oil and gas industry, you'll be able to find people on that register, Ugandans who are able to do this job. So it provides visibility. So you can say there's no one who is able to provide kind of pipes we want, but we know that Mebo company is a supplier of pipes.
Before you bring in a foreign expert,
they can do the job. Why can't you contact them? So it provides visibility for companies. So they register on, it provides visibility, and the companies which are going to procure, they go on the database and say, these are the services available, these are the security companies we have, these are human resource companies we have, why don't we contact them to get the job? It is surprising what you hear that some companies, for example, in the districts, because there is a lot of construction materials going to be required, we have had testimonies of companies, someone seated in France or England or America or China and wants to participate in the Ugandan project as the EPC or engineering, procurement and construction company, but wants construction material, has checked on the National Supplier Database and found someone in Bunyoro who has a stone quarry and contact them and said, I want to work with you for you to supply for me materials. So that's a kind of magic the database is doing, to be able to show what Ugandans can do.
So you're saying the National Oil and Gas Talent Register will be able to have, people who can be able to do a particular job or even fit for a particular position.
Exactly.
Instead of getting an expatriate, give them $50,000 US, you can get that person actually here. Exactly.
So as I was saying, that is for the companies. Now when you come to the National Oil and Gas Talent Register, this is for skills. And individuals. So if I'm there and I'm saying, Mabel, I'm a drilling engineer. I have 3 years experience. I've worked in Turkey. There is no reason when the Petroleum Authority, which is supposed to give recommendation for the work permits, is going to give someone foreign that work permit recommendation when Mabel is there. So this National Oil and Gas Talent Register is showing us the skills available in country. The magnitude of skills. We want many people at the technical level. Do we have them? Do we have the drillers? Do we have the qualified welders? Do we have the drivers? So that shows them. But also, it is also helping us reskill people. So, for example, like the Chamber of Mines, which has organized this, is reskilling some people in terms of welding, in terms of scaffolding. They were able to go on the National Oil and Gas Talent Register and picked people who have skills in those fields and said, let's certify them to another level to get international certifications to be able to work in the oil and gas industry. For example, Safeway Rightway is a training company for drivers. They were able to go there and pick truck drivers because we're going to have thousands of trucks flowing, bringing in equipment. but they need a special qualifications to be able to drive. So they were able to pick drivers off the National Oil and Gas Talent Register and say, these are the drivers, let's skill them slightly higher to be able to participate in the sector. So this tool of the National Oil and Gas Talent Register is showing us the skills available, it's showing us the skills, the gaps that are there, and it's helping government achieve the program of reskilling and upgrading Ugandans to be able to work.
Because the fears or the complaints are usually that Ugandans are the ones that are usually given the low-grade jobs, and then the foreign expatriates come in and take the, highly paying, jobs at the end of the day. And when you look at, oh yes, it's 80% local content Ugandans have been employed, they are the majority, but at times they say it fails to translate into the local content benefits to the local Ugandan. Well,
I think that's why Uganda thought it wise to put the Petroleum Authority to make sure that is checked. The Petroleum Authority is given a mandate to recommend a work permit for anyone to work in the oil and gas sector. Now, before they give it to any expatriate, they require you to advertise the job. And prove that there is no Ugandan able to do that job. If you're able to prove it, then you're given a work permit for an expatriate, but there is what we call nationalization plan. You attach a nationalization plan. That means you identify a Ugandan who is going to take over that job when you're done. And yes, it is true that the industry is new in Uganda, so there are some skills that we will not have as a nation. But we can develop those skills. And over time, we have seen this work. For example, Talo, which is going out, by the time it set out, it had almost 95% Ugandan employees. This comes from the MD app, going to the technical people. And this is something that was developed over time with people having expatriates, but having people to shadow them. Now, currently as we speak, most of these companies have over 70% Ugandans. And we are watching them, and there's a requirement of the law under what percentages, which 30% at management level in the first years and grow to 70. At the technical level starts at 40 and grows to 70, and at the lower level starts at 70 and grows to 90. So the authority is there to monitor and watch to make sure that, one, the positions are nationalized, two, Ugandans are being trained to take up those jobs in the future, but three, also, to make sure that the Ugandans, the expatriates, only those who are qualified and only those where Uganda lacks skills are able to work in Uganda in the oil and gas sector.
So can you then be able to speak to us on currently on the entities, on the registration process, or even the turnaround time on the registration processes?
Yes. Fortunately, these two systems have been put online. If you go to www.pau.go.ug, you find national content, and you find the national supplier database, and you find the National Oil and Gas Talent Register. So you don't have, when we started these systems in 2017, it was a manual process, but now it's online. That means you can put in your application, and the application is assessed within the minimum period between between the first week to a month. So if it's for a company, we work with sister organizations like URA to check if we pay tax, NSSF, Registration Service Bureau. Those, when we do verification, the turnaround time can be as quick as a week to a month, depending on how fast we verify. So the moment you apply, you put the right documents, you apply. For the individuals, it's instant. The moment you apply and you have your qualifications and you upload the documents, that turnaround time is also very low, within a week, for you to be able to qualify. So these systems are live systems. The moment you meet the required time around, you are easily qualified. And it's good that you check out the website and see how to apply, and see the instructions are there on how to register for these two systems.
Okay. Are they optimized to support the periodic tenders or even the employment from the operators? Definitely.
The National Oil and Gas Talent Register has both the user side and the demand side. The user side or the supply side are the people looking for jobs. But also the demand side are the people who are going to offer the jobs. Now, if I'm seated here and I'm a company, an oil company, or a major subcontractor of an oil company, I am able to see the talent there. I'm able to post the job adverts. if you go there, you see some job adverts that have been posted for people who are looking for employment. So they are instant that these people have logins. All the companies that are registered on the National Supply Database can be the demand site and therefore able to see, and people register there automatically. Also, the National Supply Database, the companies post for us, they give contracts. Every contract they give, it's uploaded there, and you can easily check out the contracts available. They also give us a procurement plan, the annual one for a year. So it is put there and it gives you a forecast beforehand what is going to be procured in that coming year. And therefore, it's also available online. So that means from the assessment, you can speak on what is available in terms of capacity on local content? Yes. From the assessment, these systems have been able to provide us an assessment of what is available. Before the systems, government did some studies. It did what we call the industrial baseline survey. That survey identified the potential Ugandans have. It identified the contracts that Ugandans can be able to do, those that they can do through joint ventures, and those that international companies have to do. Also, we did one for the skills, the workforce skills development strategy and plan. Came out as a result of the capacity needs analysis, which identified which skills are needed for industry, which ones are available in Uganda, and what should be done to gap that. So we know exactly what capacity Ugandans can be able to do, but that capacity has developed over time. So we will realize that regulations have ring-fenced services. Those who are ring-fenced for Ugandan companies, particularly as a result of understanding the capacity that Ugandans can be able to do. So in terms of logistics, in terms of ICT, in terms of telecommunication, in terms of human resource, all those were ring-fenced because Ugandans can be able to do it. But we have seen capacity of Ugandans develop over time. I can tell you before, in exploration, companies were participating in only catering work, simple works. But we've seen companies develop that we tell you now we have Ugandan companies which can do seismic data acquisition. These are technical processes of acquiring data of an area. And we have seen Ugandan companies now beginning to partner with foreign companies to do that, to do geotechnical and geophysical surveys. So these have showed the development of Ugandan capacity from the time the IBS was done to now. So the systems are able to show us now that we actually have companies that can participate a bit in drilling to do part of it, or to be able to join international companies to develop, to participate in technical processes or technical fields, but also show the non-technical areas where Ugandans easily participate and have continued to easily participate. Okay, so aside from the databases for effective national participation, service providers would actually need to know about these available opportunities in time. As the Petroleum Authority, what plans do you have, going forward on how you're going to be informing the service providers of these opportunities as they come? Thank you. As we go forward, we are going to do what we've been doing. And I want to tell you that the Petroleum Authority has been doing this very well. We've had, I think we have the local content law. And one of the requirements of the local content law is to have quarterly supplier engagements. Now, these engagements are held by all oil companies, and the authority facilitates them, supports them. So every quarter, you have companies on the National Supply Database being informed of these quarterly supply engagements. These have so far even moved to online engagements during COVID time. So in those engagements, we tell them what is coming, and we tell them what to prepare. But also, secondly, we have the annual National Content Conference. Every year, we give a conference and we give suppliers and inform them of what is coming. Last year, we had a successful one. The year before, we had another one, and we're planning for the third annual National Content Conference. We also have advertising requirements in the regulation, that every opportunity needs to be advertised to have competition in it. So this is another thing that we do as an authority to make sure that this is advertised. But also on the National Supply Database, like I mentioned, the opportunities are there. So if a company is looking for an opportunity, they always knock there, check out the contracting docket under the national content and see how they participate in this. So this, and we have regular engagements, TV shows like this one, supported by our partners like Chamber of Mines. We have radio shows, and that's all we keep doing in that.
Okay, and the timelines for the commencement of works in the development phase?
Yes, as you've all have heard that we've been waiting for the final investment decision. That decision is expected by the end of the year. The moment that decision is taken, then construction phase, we get into that construction phase development project. But also before that FID is done, the contracting process is ongoing. There are some contracts that are being awarded in the process, and they are to be looked out for. Yeah.
Well, so for Ugandans to continue preparing themselves, what advice would you give them on some of those things that they need to do?
So for Ugandans, the first thing I would advise them is if you're looking for a contract, register on the National Supplier Database.
Okay.
Are you there? Number two, get interested in the industry. Know what is happening. There's a lot of information being put on our website. There's a lot of information being put on company websites. Get to know. Number three, check the requirements required for the industry to supply. The oil and gas industry is as complicated as an aviation industry. You need to raise your standards to be able to participate. The standards will not come low for any contract. They will have to raise your level to that. So are you working towards attaining those standards? Are you working towards having your company management policies, having your structures, having your product, and every process you go through to the level required by the industry? I'm telling you, we're dealing with the industry. For example, if there is an oil spill somewhere because of someone who is welding a pipe or the company that has been hired to weld, of its incompetence, as usual, there are billions that are lost in terms of environment. There's a lot of risk in terms of environment. The industry is very technical, but also very high risk. So we need to raise our standards as Ugandans to be able to acquire these certifications, to be able to participate, to be able to joint venture. I encourage companies to joint venture with international companies. We are learning. We need to know that if there is someone who has done it, can we joint venture to do this process together? So there is a lot that we encourage companies, and also to look out for the capacity development programs by government to help companies be able to reach that level of the standards.
Well, thank you very much for highlighting some of those issues. And that was James Musherure, the Senior National Content Officer, Contracts, that is at the Petroleum Authority, Uganda. We appreciate you for being part of this morning's breakfast meeting. Remember that the 90 days of oil and mining continue in sensitization to Ugandans and stakeholders on the oil and gas sector. My name is Mebo Twegumiezake, and more programming continues right here on NBS, your political command center.